Good morning, everybody. And good morning to those who are watching online around the country and around the world. Thank you for being part of this incredible church that we call Crossroads. I remember back when I was growing up, they used to have these things at amusement parks. They would have fun houses. Do you ever remember that? And the fun houses truly were fun, but the problem is they were really, really dangerous. I mean, there was a lot of people that got hurt on these things. I'll tell you, like one of the rides, I guess it wasn't a ride, but just the attractions that they had there. There was a barrel that was probably just about as far as to the stairs there. And it was going around in a circle. And then the next barrel was going around in the other way. And then the next one was going around this way. And so you couldn't just walk in because you'd fall. You had to walk in an angle each time. And especially the first time you ever did it, it was really freaky. And the problem is there was not a stop button. If somebody got caught in there would be people that would fall and they would just tumble and tumble and tumble. There were also no lifeguards, so to speak, or anybody to protect that. They would just keep tumbling around until somebody came and helped them get out. Well, I remember one time my friends and I were there and we were watching and we were just about to go through, and right in front of us was a couple that were in their they were middle-aged, probably in their 40s. And they obviously loved each other and cared about each other. They were holding hands and going in that, but all of a sudden something happened. One of them fell and they made the other one fall, and they just kept hitting each other and hitting each other and hitting each other and hitting each other. They didn't mean to do that. They didn't want to hurt each other. They didn't wake up that day going, let's hurt each other today. In fact, the exact opposite. They went in there to have fun, to enjoy each other, but because they got caught in this cycle, they kept hurting each other. And I really believe that that's a lot of marriages are like that. A lot of marriages that they love each other, truly love each other. They truly care about each other, but they get caught in this cycle and they end up doing exactly the opposite of what they want to do, and they keep hurting each other and hurting each other and hurting each other. Now, can you imagine if they got out of that cycle, just how great that would be? Instead of hurting each other all the time, they'd stop doing that. But then how about if they did something else? They got into a different cycle, and that cycle was to keep helping each other and blessing each other and blessing each other and blessing each other. Can you see where that would be a really, really good thing? About 15 years ago, I did a series based on a book by Everett Eggerichs, and it's called Love and Respect. It's one of the biggest selling Christian books of all time. Millions of copies sold because it really hit some people. And of all the sermons that I've ever done of series, this has got to be one of the ones that people said, man, that was a game changer for me, or that was a game changer for our marriage. So I really felt I was supposed to rewrite that series and do that series again. And really, at the end of this series, I truly believe that if we go through this, that you're going to understand yourself better. You're going to go, oh, wow, that's why I do that. And you're also going to understand the opposite sex better, in whether that's a boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife, whether that's your siblings, your parents, your children, people you work with, people that. And if you're married, and if you ever plan on being married or remarried, this is going to help you to meet the deepest needs of your spouse. It's going to help protect you from an affair or things like that. It's also going to make it where you bless the other person, and it's a whole lot peaceful in your family. Doesn't it sound like something maybe pretty good to talk about? In this series, I want to say this. It is an important series. It's a challenge to preach this series. I just want to say that. And so I'm asking for your prayers. I'm asking that you give me some grace. I'm asking that you cut me some slack, because I'm going to say some things that probably I'm not going to be perfect in how I present this. But I also want you to cut yourself some slack as we do this. And give yourself some grace. Because as you hear this, you're going to understand that no one is going to fulfill what I'm talking about perfectly, including yours truly. But here's what we do, that we're here together because we want to grow, right? We want to grow as believers. We want to grow as men and women. We want to grow as husband and wife. We want to grow whatever situation we're in. We want to be better at that. And so this is why we're in this together. And something else about that is we're going to be talking about generalizations. What we're talking about does not apply to every man or does not apply to every woman, but it's going to apply to the vast majority of men and the vast majority of women. And that's why it's a generalization, but the reason we call it a generalization is because they're generally true, right? And there's a verse that God gives in Ephesians chapter 3 that is absolutely gold. It's $1 million advice for how to understand the opposite sex, to also understand so you can appreciate them more, so you can communicate better with them, and especially when that's involved in a husband and wife. Here's what it says. Each one of you, talking to the men first, each one of you must love your wife as you love yourself, and the wife must respect her husband. And Paul is clearly telling us, giving us advice on what a man, what a husband needs, and what a woman and what a wife needs. And that's this: a woman needs love primarily, and a man needs respect primarily. Now, some of you may say, wait a second, what about the song Respect that Aretha Franklin sang? She said that women need it, they've got to have it, talking about respect. And Aretha Franklin sang the song, but Otis Redding, a man, wrote the song 2 years before that. And obviously, a woman needs respect, but she needs love more. And obviously, a man needs love, but they need respect even more. It's like this. Every single one of us, we need water and we need food, right? We've got to have both of those things. But we need water more than we need food. For the woman, the water is love and the food is respect. Now, nobody's going, you got to be kidding. A woman needs love? This is not eye-opening for that. But here's the thing that's different, is for the man, the water is respect and the food is love. And so here's, if you want to kind of some showing that, an example of that, is think about this, greeting cards. First of all, who buys the vast majority of those? And for Hallmark cards or Hallmark station, do you think either one of those would exist if there were just men in this world? Not a chance, right? But think about the cards there. Do the cards say, the romantic cards, baby, to the woman, baby, I respect you? Or do they say, baby, I love you? And but it's so different for the man. Listen to this. A survey of men said this: if you had to experience one of these two negative experiences, to be left alone and unloved in the world, or to feel inadequate and disrespected by everyone, 74% of the men would say if they had forced to choose that between being alone and unloved or being disrespected, they would choose to be alone and unloved. And probably most of the ladies are in here going, you got to be kidding me. You'd rather be alone than that. But most of the men, 3/4 of them are probably going, yeah, that's pretty much accurate. Now, a question that a wife may ask themselves is this: does my husband love me as much as I love him? Because she loves him. She is made for love. A woman is made for love. They're fantastic at it. But she thinks this, she usually will come up with this conclusion: he must not love me as much as I love him, because there's times that he acts very unloving. So what does the person do? What does the lady do? A lot of times they think, I need to change that man into a more loving man. And sometimes she transforms from being the admiring and appreciative woman that she was when they were courting into somebody that's not as appreciative and applauding, right? And how does she do that? A lot of times she will do that through criticism. But let me ask you this. Does criticism ever inspire a man to be more loving? Absolutely not. It's never worked. It never will work. It's like smacking a puppy, hoping that they will be more loving to you. It doesn't work. It never will. The man asks a different question. Here's the question the man asks. He knows that she loves him because she's fantastic love. His question is, Does she like me? Because sometimes she acts disrespectful, so she must not love me or respect me. Otherwise, she would act more respectfully. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to look at this for a second and be on this point, linger on it a minute more, because the women have asked me to do this. The last time we did this, they said, make sure you highlight this. And they said things like this. This could have saved me years of confusion. This could have saved me years of pain. When a man hears criticism, negative criticism, they interpret that as contempt. There's an international honor code among men that there are things we say and things we don't say to each other. And there's different ways we say that. Now, a lot of the women would be in here saying, wait a second, guys are always busting each other's chops. They're always cutting up. They're always putting each other down and doing that. That's friends. That's over here. All the rest of the things, if a man hears negative criticism, they're going to say, I don't deserve this. Nobody else treats me like that. And they will, trust me, get angry. Here's what he says. Dr. Engerich says about this. He said, that she criticizes out of love. That's her motive. But what he hears is only disrespect. Wives don't tend to see this because correction is part of their maternal nature. The problem is that sometimes they tend to mother their husbands too. And when that happens, he feels like his wife is reducing him to a child. The typical wife knows instinctively the correcting or mothering her husband isn't good, it's not enjoyable, and it certainly isn't effective, but she wonders what else can she do, especially when that is what has been modeled for her or that she in the society that she's grown up in. The book of Proverbs talks a lot about wisdom and how to live a wise life. And 3 times he talks about something called a quarrelsome wife. Now remember, this is not just Solomon saying this is God saying this. This isn't me saying this, okay? And it says this in Proverbs 21:9. Better to live on a corner of a roof than share a house with a quarrelsome wife. Proverbs 21:19. Better to live in a desert than with a quarrelsome and intemperate wife. Proverbs 27:15. A quarrelsome wife is like the constant dripping on a rainy day. Now the word that's used there for quarrelsome is madayim. Here's what it means. Fault finding, belittling, or criticizing, or to reprimand or criticize harshly and angrily. And think about what that's saying. It's God saying that it would be rather better for a man to live in a corner of a roof or a desert than in a situation like that. And here's the big question that Dr. Engerich says he asks ladies to help them out with this. He said, how would you want your future son-in-law or daughter-in-law or your daughter-in-law now to treat your son? Would you want them to treat him with fault-finding and or anger or contempt or belittling? And they would answer this, absolutely not, because I know that his spirit would be crushed and that he would shut down. And sometimes when he says that, he says a light bulb goes on in that. Does that mean, this is important, does that mean that a woman cannot share her feelings, her hurts, her everything, the fact that he's acting like a poop head and acting very unloving? Absolutely not. It's just seeing how we do that makes the difference, whether it's in a respectful way or a disrespectful way. Now, right here, I wanted to show 2 videos, okay? But we did not have the permission to do that because when we show videos, we have to have a permission now to show things or not. And one of this was a seagull, a female seagull squawking at a male seagull. And he at first just hears that, and then he just starts walking around and walking around and walking around, and she's just right behind. And you're going, it's not working, sweetheart. It's not working. He's going to keep going. And this is something we have to realize, that 85% of all men will stonewall the woman eventually if that's happening, okay? The next thing is this, that there was 2 gorillas, and one was a male gorilla, one was the female, and first she's kind of squawking there too. And first, he stonewalls her. He does this, and she keeps doing it. He grabs a stick and goes whack. Now, does he really think that he's going to cause her to be more respectful by acting very unloving? That's something that, again, will never, ever happen. You'll never cause a woman to be more respectful by being more unloving. Do you see this cycle, and do you see how crazy it is? And do you see how this affects so many marriages around? Dr. Eggerich says this. He talks about this and he calls it the crazy cycle. And go ahead and throw that up there. Here's the situation. Without love, she's going to react in a disrespectful way. Without respect, he's going to act very unloving. And this is going to keep going and going and going and going until somebody or both of them get out of the crazy cycle. And it's just like if the barrel got faster and faster and faster. Here's something that we need to realize. Let me ask you this question. Do women fight primarily with their fists or their mouth? Mouth, right? But men are not as good at that. We are not near as good at communication as ladies are. So here's what happens. A lot of times, a woman, when she is feeling unloved, she will get louder and louder and louder. And when the woman gets louder and louder and louder, the man who's not as good as that will get quieter and quieter and quieter. And the woman will say, well, he's been quieter, so I feel even more unloved than I did before, and get louder and louder. And the man will say, well, I feel even more disrespected. And do you see how this is so insane? And do you see why the Bible talks about this? And do you see why we need to talk about this as well? So here's the thing. God tells us how to get out of the crazy cycle. He says this, husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands. And notice that God commands us to do that. God commands a man to love his wife. God commands a woman to respect her husband. Now, the word that is used for love to the man, that the man is supposed to agape his wife. And the word agape it's the word for unconditional love. A man is to unconditionally love his wife. It doesn't say if she starts acting respectfully, if she does this. It says love her, period. And a man may say this, well, it is hard to love somebody who is coming at you with both guns. And yeah, you're right. But God's going to give you the grace to do that. His grace is sufficient for you. And he also will give you the faith that you need to go through that. Now, the woman is to unconditionally as well love her husband. But this is one of those aha moments for a lot of people, is this. Dr. Eggerich says, women naturally understand that love can and should be unconditional. Nobody would argue with that. But here's the problem. But the thought of unconditional respect is totally foreign to us in our culture. In fact, it seems oxymoronic. There is a belief in our culture that while love should be unconditional, respect must be earned. And do you see the problem with that? The one is going that this is to be earned, and again, probably never ever get up to where they can earn, so never will be respected. That problem is talked about in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 2. He's talking to ladies who have unbelieving husbands, okay? Many people that are listening here, that's your situation right now. He says this, he says, man, if you just treat him in the right way, there's a chance that guy might come to faith in God through your respectful actions, through your loving actions, through that. So we're both supposed to do these things unconditionally. Now, a woman may say, well, it is really hard to respect somebody who's acting in a very unloving way. Yep, it is. And that's where grace comes in. God's grace is sufficient for you, and God's faith will give you faith as well. So here's the big thing. How do we get out of this crazy cycle? How do we do this? First of all, and this is huge, some of us were even talking about this last week, and it's this, that believe that your spouse to be good-willed. Here's the fact. You and I, no matter how well we intend to do the right thing, we oftentimes do the wrong thing, don't we? That there are times that we don't want to be unloving to our spouse. We don't want to be disrespectful to that. And we blow it. Despite our best intentions, we blow it. And understand that your spouse is the same thing. They are good-hearted, good-willed, just like you are. They don't want to do things disrespectfully. They are not wanting to. They don't wake up and say, I'm going to be unloving today. So we need to give them the same understanding that we don't mean to do that, and neither do they. You know, Sylvia and I have a very peaceful marriage. We don't have a perfect marriage. We hurt each other unintentionally. We have misunderstandings. We have disagreements just like anybody else. But one thing that I think has really helped is I know and believe that she, even when I'm acting like a boogerhead, there's times that she knows my heart, right? She knows he's not meaning to hurt me. He's not meaning to do something unloving. He's not meaning, I know his heart. And so, and the same thing, when I know that she does something that hurts me, I know she doesn't mean to do that. And just the knowing of that and understanding that your spouse has the same good intentions, even though it may mess up, and just knowing that, do you see the difference it could make in relationships and in marriages? The other thing is this: understand that men and women are very, very different. Do I hear an amen? And that we see that he sees blue, she sees pink. We see the world completely different. I mean, completely different. And you think about this, that a woman is always going to see the world through pink glasses. A man is always going to see the world through blue glasses. And those perceptions of the world are completely different. Give you an example of this. A man and a woman are about to have their 10th anniversary. And one time, for years, the man has forgotten the anniversary. I know that's never, ever happened to anybody in here, but it has happened here. On their 10th anniversary, miracle of miracles, he didn't need any hints. He remembered, and he went to Hallmark. A colorful card caught his eye. The words were perfect, and he thought, this card is her, no doubt about it. She is going to love it. And he goes home, he writes some wonderful, heartfelt note, even with some hearts around it. She sees the card and she starts beaming from ear to ear. Finally, he remembered. Then she opens the card and begins to read it, and her face falls. What's wrong? He said. Nothing, she said. Now, when a lady says nothing, does she mean nothing ever, ever, ever? He says, there is too something wrong. The card is not bad for a birthday card. Too bad it's not my birthday. You may have guessed that at that moment, the conversation went downhill quickly. You're kidding, he says. No way, unbelievable. I can't believe I did that. He tried so hard, is full of goodwill. And he said, honey, I made an honest mistake. Give me a break. And she says, give you a break? You made the mistake because you don't care. If you had had your card detailed and they'd missed the smallest detail, you'd have noticed that. Why? Because you care about that, but you don't care about me as much. And let's get ready to rumble, right, at this moment. So at this moment, he says, I'm glad I got you a birthday card. And he slams the door and he goes out, and here's a couple that loves each other, and they want to be together, and they want to be close. And this is a night that they wanted to share the joy of their anniversary, and instead they're on different sides because they saw things different. One seeing pink, one seeing blue. And notice this, the one who's seeing pink, people in here, ladies, are probably thinking, well, of course she's hurt. He got her a birthday card, for heaven's sake. And the guys are probably thinking, well, of course he's angry because she acted in a disrespectful way and he tried the best that he could. Do you see that we just see the world in a different way? And if we understand that, he's seeing a way that's different than you are. The second thing is understand that we speak in different codes. He speaks blue, she speaks pink. Now, in World War II, right before the Battle of Midway, the Allied forces, they broke the Japanese code, and it helped like crazy to be able to go into victory. If we break this code that I'm about to say, that's straight out of the Word of God, it's going to help us have victory in our marriages and in our relationships with the opposite sex. Here it is. Women need love. They need to feel loved. Men need to be respected. And if we can just understand those two things with every relationship we have, it's going to go a long way for getting out of the crazy cycle. The other thing is readjust our glasses. That sometimes we're never going to be, I'm never going to be able to see in pink. Ladies, you're never going to see in blue. But maybe we can just take them off for a minute in our own and just realize that he has a choice. When things are happening like that, he has a choice to either ignore her feelings and have her feel even more unloved, or he can try genuinely to attempt to help her feel loved and understood in a way that pink appreciates. The same thing. She has a choice. She can ignore his cry for respect and make him feel even more disrespected, or she can make him feel respected in a way that blue appreciates. There's a biblical example of this, and it's you have Jacob and Rachel. And it's a beautiful love story. Jacob absolutely loves Rachel. He loves her so much that he was willing to work 14 years in order to have her hand in marriage. No one doubts his love. But here's the problem, that she is barren. And because of that, I mean, that's really tough now. Big, big, big deal. It was even a bigger deal back then. And to add insult to injury, here's what happens. Leah, Rachel's sister, is also married to Jacob. You can imagine how that went out. And while she is unable to have kids, her sister, Leah, is popping out babies like a vending machine, right? And so one day, she just lashes out at Jacob. And here's what she says. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Jacob became angry with her and said, "Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Rachel gives him both barrels, and he turns the gun around and gives her both barrels. Now, ladies, let me ask you this. If he'd have done this a little different, instead of going out and doing that when she did that to him, what if he would have gone over, embraced her, and said this? And said, thought to himself first, took off his blue glasses and thought, she's not expecting me to be God. What is she needing? What is she wanting right now? She needs to be loved. And he wraps her in his arms and says, "Honey, this must be so hard for you. I'm so sorry that you're going through this, but we're going through this together. And I want you to know that I don't love you any less. In fact, I love you so much. Not only would I work another 14 years, I'd work 140 years. You are precious to me. I love you, period." Now, can you imagine the difference when he just got off the crazy cycle? And can you imagine the difference that would make in her heart just as he took off his blue glasses, tried to understand what Pink was going through, and responded in love to her? Imagine Dr. Igrich says this. He's asked the question, who gets off the crazy cycle first? And he says this, whoever feels they're the most mature. And there's this too, he said, a lot of people will say, well, here's the problem. I'm afraid that if I get off the crazy cycle, my spouse will stay on the crazy cycle, right? But here's the thing. First of all, even if they do, we're supposed to do the right thing as far as it depends on us. The Bible says, let us live at peace with all people. So we're supposed to do that whether they do it or not. But don't you think that if you do that, again, think the best of your spouse. If you do that, don't you think they would respond in the same way, in a good way, just like you're responding in that? Think the best of them. Here's what the Bible says this, to treat others as you would want to be treated. So treat your spouse in the way you would want them to treat you, and watch what happens. Watch how love grows. Watch how respect grows. Watch how the marriage just gets stronger and stronger as that happens. And there's going to be times where we hurt each other, but we just get off of the cycle as fast as possible. And when you try to spend time blessing your spouse, here's what's going to happen. Not only are you going to bless them, you're going to find the blessing come back to you 100-fold. Amen.